In 1976, a German football magazine named their 5 greatest footballers of all time: Sir Stanley Matthews, Alfredo di Stefano, Ferenc Puskas, Pele, and finally, Hong Kong-born forward Lee Wai Tong. Who the hell is Lee Wai Tong, I hear you say? Well, strap yourselves in, because today on Halftime Football, you're about to hear about the greatest footballer you never heard of. Lee Wai Tong, or Lee Huitang as he's known in mainland China, was born in 1905 in Tai Hang, which is a small fishing village in Hong Kong. He grew up practicing football skills with oranges, sandbags and grapefruits due to his family's lack of wealth, the lack of sporting encouragement in Hong Kong, and of course the lack of facilities. He would supposedly practice his shooting using said fruits in a small hole made for his dog to enter the family home. Lee became extremely talented with everything but a football, but he was still determined to make it in the sport. He grew up like this until the age of 17, where he joined Hong Kong side South China in 1922. Towering over his opposition at a height of 182 centimeters, Lee established himself in his first year as a prominent goal-scoring talent, and as a result he was selected to compete in the Far Eastern Games with China in 1923. At the age of only 18, he lit up the competition in his 4 appearances as China won the tournament, one of which included a 5-minute hat-trick against Japan, and it was clear from there that a football legend was in the making. In that same year, South China played against the champions of Australia, and Lee dazzled spectators, scoring 2 goals in 5 minutes before completing his hat-trick late on, which led to him getting his infamous nickname from the Hong Kong press, the King of Football. The South China team toured all of Australia, and although they mostly got beaten by their upside-down opposition, Lee Wai Tong scored half of the team's goals on the tour at just 18 years old. After his second Far Eastern Games triumph with China and carrying South China to a league title a year prior, Lee departed Hong Kong for China in 1925, joining Shanghai Fudan University initially as a player coach, before moving to Shanghai Lehua a year later, where he truly shone. In 1926, Lehua competed in the Prentice Scotto Cup, which was one of the biggest competitions in the world at the time, contested between British, Chinese, Portuguese and Irish teams, with the British having won the previous 9 championships at that point. However, with the help of Lee, the Shanghai outfit were able to finally dismantle the British, winning the final game 4-1. This opened the floodgates for Lehua, who grew in confidence and were finally able to compete against foreign opposition, and they won the trophy several more times before it ended in 1941. Lee Wai Tong became a symbol for the Chinese, as his talent, accolades and hard work were a fantastic metaphor for fighting oppressive foreign dominance. Lee's achievements with Lehua are often disputed due to a lack of mainland Chinese reporting on his exploits, but it is certain when looking at the Prentice Scotto successes that he definitely won several domestic trophies with them. One achievement that is well documented is the domestic treble that Lehua won in 1927, which is certainly a testament to how much Lee would have won with the club. Lee returned to South China in 1931 after 5 incredibly successful years with Lehua, and he picked up where he left off. He continued effortlessly scoring goals against fearful Hong Kong goalkeepers, with historic tales even saying that keepers had been scared to try save his shots after several of them had supposedly been knocked out due to his sheer power. Lee also apparently broke the net of the goals several times due to his ferocious strikes. Between 1931 and 1936, South China won 3 Hong Kong First Division titles, but it was after that 1935-36 season that Lee Wai Tong and the Chinese team truly established a worldwide name for themselves. Lee and 8 of his Hong Kong compatriots were selected in the Chinese football team for the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, but unfortunately they were not financially supported by the government in their quest for Europe. The team were forced to raise their own money for their travels, so 2 months before the games commenced, Lee organised a tour which would ultimately see them set foot in Berlin in time for the Olympics. The Chinese side ultimately played 27 games in 62 days, winning 23 and drawing 4, which does seem great on paper, but it was ultimately their downfall. China arrived in Berlin incredibly fatigued, and not only from the football but also from their travel methods. The team boarded a 10-day vessel from Bombay to Venice before arriving in Berlin via an overnight sleeper train. China had worked tirelessly to recover match fitness in time for their first and unfortunately final Olympic match. Great Britain was simply too efficient for the tired Chinese, with goals from John Dodds and Kester Finch securing a 2-0 win for Team GB. The team later received compliments from British captain captain Bernard Joy, with the Arsenal man declaring that the Chinese outfit were superior at ball control and positioning, though it must be said that the British have never really been known for their technical swagger, not until recently at least. This, however, wasn't the end of the fairy tale. China continued to tour Europe in an array of exhibition matches, with spectators flocking to get a glimpse of Lee Wai Tong in action as the Chinese team disappointingly failed to impress. They even lost 11-0 at one point to Austrian outfit SK Admira. Domestically though, South China continued to dominate with Lee up top, winning 4 successive league titles between 1937 and 1941. However, all competitive footballing activity ceased in Hong Kong and for Lee Wai Tong in 1941 following the Japanese occupation. Lee joined the Chinese army and even continued to raise money through exhibition matches before eventually returning to South China after the war had finished and Japan surrendered the territory back to the British. Lee played for South China until 1948, where at the age of 43 he finally retired from football. Over the course of his career, Lee Wai Tong and the Chinese team won the football tournament at the Far Eastern Games 5 times in a row between 1923 and 1934, with Lee even acting as a player manager throughout the last tournament. He enjoyed club success with South China, winning the league 8 times during 18 years with the side over 2 separate spells, which was a heavy contribution towards their record 41 Hong Kong First Division titles. Finally, as aforementioned, his records with Lehua are not really certain whatsoever, though it is widely believed that he was incredibly successful in Shanghai. Overall, claims have been made that Lee scored 1,860 goals, which would in fact make him the greatest goalscorer of all time, but due to a lack of proper documentation, none of this will ever be verified. After his playing days, Lee continued to be involved in the footballing scene, coaching the Chinese team at the Olympics and the Asian Games, with China winning the latter tournament under his leadership. He was also appointed Vice President of FIFA in 1965, being the first and only ever Hong Konger to reach such a position. Lee Wai Tong passed away in his native Hong Kong in 1979, leaving a minimal legacy compared to what he should have given his achievements. And this of course leads to the great question, why does nobody know about him? Why is he not mentioned amongst the greats? Well, one big reason he isn't very well regarded in history books is due to his political viewpoints. Obviously, as of late, Hong Kong has been having its fair share of political troubles involving the Chinese Communist Party, but the Hong Kong rebellion dates back way longer. Lee Wai Tong, as well as opera singer Li Shifang, were recruited by the US in the 50s in order to spread anti-communist propaganda during the Cold War, with the intentions not totally clear from the American side. Due to these anti-patriotic activities, mainland China completely stopped reporting on Lee, and hence his footballing exploits have rarely been published. On the footballing side of things, Lee Wai Tong stayed loyal to China and mostly Hong Kong, which obviously hampered his publicity. He was supposedly offered trials at Arsenal and Paris Red Star around the time his Chinese side played in the Olympics, but he turned down the offers due to his everlasting connection with China and Hong Kong. FIFA also recognized former Filipino footballer Paulino Alcantara as the greatest Asian player of all time in 2007, so he's a bit more well renowned in the global football scene. Additionally, due to this being the 20s and 30s, there's very little surviving footage of Lee Wai Tong, which logically leads to disagreements over how good he actually was. His number of goals is also often debated, with official figures saying it was around 1,260, but as I mentioned earlier, others have it down as 1,860. However, these goal scorers have a knack for inflating their tallies, with Pele claiming everything and Joseph Bichan seeming to remember scoring over 5,000. Nobody really knows for sure. However, what is known to a small minority of the population is that Hong Kong's king of football tore apart defences constantly over a 25-year playing career, and he's certainly one for the history books despite rarely ever being mentioned in them. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'd like to thank the South China Morning Post, and more specifically the journalist Jonathan White, as without his detailed information on Lee Wai Tong, this video wouldn't have been possible, so be sure to follow me on Twitter or whatever. I'll link it in the description, and I'll see you next time.